Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight in the Locker Room. I'm Alan Locher. Today's show is dedicated to each and every person who has been touched by cancer. I personally lost my mother to lung cancer, and as the saying goes, cancer sucks. The international nonprofit charitable organization Twist Out Cancer provides psychosocial support to individuals touched by cancer through creative arts programming. The organization was founded on the principle that when you share, the world opens up. Its signature program is called Brushes with Cancer, which is a 6-month program that matches those touched by cancer with artists to create a unique piece of artwork that reflects on their personal journey with cancer. Joining me first today is August Spree, who is a cancer survivor herself. She met her partner, Brad Young, who served as her artist for her Brushes with Cancer experience. August was so moved by this experience, she joined the board of directors for Twist Out Cancer and now serves as the director of programs. For this, she is the driving force for the planning and execution for the Brushes with Cancer programs. This includes everything from matching up inspirations and artists to work together as part of the program and planning for the annual events. In addition to August, you will meet artist Sarah Zielinski, who is working with inspiration Pam Oliver, who lost her daughter to cancer. We will hear how Sarah got involved, and Pam will discuss what Twist Out Cancer calls the reveal, which is always a very emotional experience for all those involved. Please welcome to the Locker Room, August Spree. Hi, August.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay,
Yes,
good,
you
good,
did very
good.
well.
Thank you. For those tuning in, please tell us what the mission of Twist Out Cancer is.
Our mission is to connect people, what we like to call creating unexpected intersections. So it
Mhm.
involves connecting people who may not have met, during the natural course of life, and giving them a chance to, as you mentioned, share, connect, and heal.
Hmm. Powerful too.
It is. It just allows sometimes when you go through a difficult situation, it's difficult to share things with the people that are closest to you. Everyone who surrounds you during a time of a diagnosis is really trying to help you get through it and support you. And so when you have this other person who's connecting with you for the sole purpose of listening and supporting, sometimes you're able to share things that you weren't able to share with the people that were, in your life during that time, and it can be really freeing. It just really opens those doors and allows for an additional layer of healing for people.
Hmm. In the introduction, I mentioned your roles at Twist Out Cancer. Can you elaborate on your roles?
Yes, absolutely. I sort of stumbled into a Brushes with Cancer event in the early days, and I was just blown away. At that point, I was beyond my diagnosis with cancer and my whole experience, but I was passionate about assisting. So I had worked with some other organizations and volunteered a little bit, and the combination of using art as a healing method and sort of reflecting people's journeys within the artwork just really impacted me. And so I walked up to our founder, Jenna Ben Schercher, and announced, I said, we're going to be friends. And she is very gracious. So we had coffee a couple of weeks later, and I was very eager. I was just like, how can I be involved? How can I help? And the first step was being involved in the program myself as a survivor. And I was matched up with an artist who did an amazing job of just listening and really learning my story and reflecting it in the artwork. And as it turned out, we then became the Twist Out Cancer love story. And 7 years later, we're still together. So
And
I
that is,
have to say, results are not typical.
yeah, it's like a dating site. Who knew?
Right, right. We don't want people to think that.
And your art, the artist you were matched with was Brad Young.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's an incredible story. Twist Out Cancer will celebrate its 10th anniversary at the Midwest Brushes with Cancer event on Sunday, November 14th. What started in 2012 as a small art exhibition in Chicago for 20 inspirations and artists has now become an international program that has touched the lives of over 140,000 people around the world. When you hear that,
I know. I know, it's like, I know that, but still, when I hear it, it still kind of blows my mind, and, um, the programs that we have currently going on, well, we just finished one in the Northeast region, and had a gorgeous exhibition that's still open in Philadelphia right now, um, but for this year, our programs had over 190 participants, we call them, so those are the inspirations, which are those who have been touched by cancer. It could be a survivor, a previvor, or a caregiver, and then the artists. And so we had over 190 participants, and let me think, 28 states represented and six different countries. So it was,
wow,
yeah, it's been really
that's
amazing to,
incredible.
yeah, to see these connections happening. It's amazing.
And really because Jenna was touched by cancer.
Right. Exactly. That's how this whole thing started. She was in her
Crazy.
20s when she was diagnosed and had a background in dance and found herself feeling very isolated. And this is before social media days, so YouTube was very, very new. And she threw a video up of herself doing the twist and just asked for people to join her on the dance floor because it was something that she missed doing. And very quickly, there were all of these video responses of people doing the twist, and people were sort of twisting out cancer. So that's how the name came about. And also the idea that there is a community ready to connect and through this medium. And that's
Hmm.
sort of what kicked it off.
And to me, I know, but for Jenna, like I know dancing is so freeing and liberating,
It
and
is.
it's like my happy place. So
Right.
I get it. You yourself in 2003 were diagnosed with cancer. Can you share some of your story?
Yes. I was diagnosed in 2003 when I was 8 months pregnant with my second son. Um, I had a lump that was bothering me, and I actually had to go through several doctors of asking people to do something, pay attention, and was very much, I was also involved in dance. That was my full-time job at the time, was teaching dance, and was relatively healthy. And so a lot of the doctors just sort of, oh, it's probably nothing, just drink some tea. I got that from one doctor, and just different things. And finally, a doctor did decide to biopsy. And in his words, he said, if it'll make you feel better, we'll go ahead and take a sample just for that peace of mind. And so at that point, I was 8 months along, and I'll never forget the words that he said to me, which was, the thing is, it's cancer, when I came back for the results. And yeah, from there, it was really just quite a journey, as I'm sure it is with anyone who hears those words. Um, but my son is fine. He's 18 years old, and
Wow.
everything worked out. And then about a year and a half later, my grandmother, who raised me, was
Mhm.
diagnosed, and she passed away 10 months after her diagnosis.
Yeah, and I want you to talk about it in a second, but I really want to reiterate something because you said it, but it is so important that we advocate for ourselves when we know something is wrong. I
Yes,
mean, you
absolutely.
you knew something was wrong and had to make that doctor truly
Hmm.
listen, and he was doing it really to appease you,
Right.
right? So I know this. It's so important that you have to listen to your body, and
Yes.
I'm so glad you did because we are today.
Yeah.
But your grandmother also was touched by cancer. Can you talk about her and sort of like role reversal? You had to take care of her.
Yeah. That was so difficult for me, just hearing the diagnosis. And at that point, it was lung cancer, and it was pretty far advanced. She went through a couple of rounds of treatment, but it really just took so much from her. And as I mentioned, she passed away 10 months later. And I know that after that, that's what really inspired me to get involved in some way with giving back within cancer organizations, because I had gone through my experience and I survived. And I sort of
Hmm.
went into her experience assuming, okay, it wasn't the same type of cancer, but, you know, I came through this, she can come through this too. It's not time yet. I can't, you know? And, and then losing her and just realizing not everyone gets to make it through. So I wanted to do whatever I could to support people going through that because there's so many layers, especially for twist out cancer. There's a lot of organizations that work in the research side and other
Hmm.
things, but with twist out cancer, we're just working to support that emotional experience of having a diagnosis for yourself or for a loved one, and then socially what that does, which people relate to a little bit more now, having gone through the pandemic and been quarantined. But that's kind of what you go through when you have a cancer diagnosis as well. You're really set aside from the regular daily rhythm of life, and this becomes your whole world for whatever time period that you have to deal with it. So I think it's really important to provide support for people as they're going through that, and to have this additional person you're connected with, this artist who is just there to listen to you, and then to take the beautiful parts of this really difficult thing that you're dealing with and reflect it back to you in a work of art. And we've had so many different kinds of art. We've had sculptures, obviously a lot of canvas art. We've had ball gowns, jewelry, music. I mean, just really anything you can think of, and it's amazing.
And your first one was a sculpture by Brad,
Yeah, yeah, it
and
was.
your second with how do you pronounce her name?
Kai,
Kai
K.
Fassi,
Yes,
who uh, did this beautiful piece of artwork.
yes. They really pulled out the what you pointed out, the fact that I had to advocate for myself, and that's what each of the pieces around the image of me represent, is all the different conversations that I had to have before someone actually did a biopsy.
Oh, that is fascinating. Fascinating. And what was the piece of art that Brad did? The dance.
It was a sculpture made of wood and metal, and when you turn, I don't know if you have an image of it, but
I don't. I should have. I meant to
oh man,
ask.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, no, it's okay. It was really beautiful. When you turn it, it was sort of a continuous movement up and down. It was sort of,
Ah.
yeah, it was really beautiful. I'll send it to you later.
Yeah, please do, and I'll share it as well.
Okay.
Please do. It was a friend a number of years after your cancer diagnosis that gave you a ticket to the Brushes with Cancer event where you met Jenna.
Hmm.
And then after that coffee, she suggested you participate as an inspiration. Do you remember, that conversation and, what you thought at that time? Were you hesitant at all? Were you excited about the prospect?
That is that's such a good question. I actually, because at that point I was about 10 years past my diagnosis, and I was ready to volunteer. I was ready to like do hard work, whatever I needed to do. And so that really surprised me, the suggestion that I participate, because I thought, well, I really assumed that I was here to help those who were like in the thick of it, you know? I'm like, that was a while ago for me, and I don't know if I have much to share. But it really surprised me, as I mentioned earlier, that I had to dig back, and then I was able to share things that I had never spoken out loud. And there were things that I had just written in my journal that I never shared with anyone, that I was able to share with my artist, and have that reflected back to me in this artwork.
Hmm.
And it was just like I mentioned before, another layer of healing that you don't even realize you kind of need.
I mean, I think any cancer diagnosis affects you for life. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it was my mother who had breast cancer and passed away from lung cancer. There's no doubt that's still affecting me today. You
Right.
know, you know. Um, Going to the event, do you remember walking in and what was it at the event that, struck a chord with you?
I do remember. It was all of the artwork mainly. I mean, being able to circle the room and read, we always put the story of the art,
With,
and the
with
inspiration
Right.
next to each piece. And so I really spent all of my time doing that. And then they had an artist who was painting live at the event as well. And I spent a good portion of my time speaking with him about the organization and about his piece that he was making and his experience, because at the time he had been an artist for a couple of programs.
Now that's not the video I watched, is it?
No,
Because
it was a
that
different artist. Yeah. But
that was truly amazing to
yeah,
watch you share your story with an artist and watch this stunning piece of art that he created.
yeah.
Really.
Elliot,
So
it was
yeah.
amazing.
Phew. So once an inspiration says yes,
Mhm.
what's the first step?
Okay, so we have an application process, and we open that up so anyone can apply. Obviously, it does ask, how you identify as far as if you're a survivor, a previvor, caregiver, and we do ask for a little bit of their story. Beyond that, it's really a way for us to sort of get to know them a little bit, their communication style mainly. Um,
Hmm.
and we have the same process for artists. So we have two different applications. And then once we close applications, we just take a lot of time to go through and try to match people up. Sometimes it's based on location. Okay, well, they might be able to get together. Obviously, over the last 2 years, our program has been primarily virtual. Some have gotten together in person who felt comfortable. Um, but sometimes it's just sort of going on a feeling, and it's really, really cool to see. Like, I had, feedback from one person who's like, "How did you know that my artist," cancer survivor, who's like, "How did you know my artist really loves anime?" And we were like, "I didn't know that." 'Cause I'm so happy that you you have that extra layer of connection. So, um, the friendships and the things that, they
I
connect
can
on.
yeah, I can only imagine, and I can like you talk about, seeing Brad's piece and Kai's piece, for the first time, but it must also for the artist to watch that moment, the reveal as we were, I said earlier. I mean, it's got to be something for the artist themselves.
I have heard that from artists to say, I mean, we really encourage each pair to coordinate with each other for that moment, because it can be such an intimate and just a really
Uh,
special moment between them. And the artist gets a chance to explain all of the things that went into the piece, like the most recent piece, from the tattoo that I have that represents my grandmother. That's
mm.
in the piece, my favorite color, just there's so many things that are in there that represent our connection and the conversations that we had, and it's really beautiful to see it all come together.
And what do you remember about the reveal with Brad's piece?
So I did cry a little bit. I'm a crier. And
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, and I remember I really love the combination of wood and metal, just the resilience that it represented, and also the movement of. I remember that being so striking, and the shadow. I'll send you the photo, but the shadow on the wall in the image, you can see it's almost sort of like a DNA sort of
Oh, wow.
spiral look. I'll send it to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Um, do artists do it more than once?
Yes. We do have some repeat artists, and that's always wonderful because they know and understand the process. I've heard from artists, and I know you'll be speaking with them later, but um, just that it's such an interesting process because as an artist, they usually create from their own perspective. They're whether it's things that are out in the world or their story that they're telling, it's usually their own perspective. So for this, they have to get into someone else's perspective to create, and it just I mean, from what feedback that we've gotten, it really just helps them grow as artists, and gives them just a new type of artistic experience, which is really cool too.
Does Twist Out Cancer give the artist any I'm sure there's guidelines, but what I mean in terms of the type, like Brad's was a sculpture, is there any type of guidance, or is it really the artist goes in with their sort of set of I don't even know if it's questions or just conversations. How does it, that process of figuring
Yeah.
out what that piece of art will turn out to be?
Well, we do, we have a lot of resources that we've developed over the last 10 years. So we provide them with as many as we can to help guide, their connection and get it started. It can be, as funny as that sounds, it can be like an awkward first date, because
Yeah, you're getting
they've
to
just,
know one another, right?
yeah, they've just gotten matched up. So we do give them like a list of potential questions if they'd like to use them. Um,
Gotcha.
Also, regarding the art, we have a minimum size requirement and some recommendations surrounding that. Just because we did experience people who thought everything was very small, and so then at the exhibition they were like, "Oh no, my piece is just really small." And so we have some recommendations regarding that, but we don't have restrictions as far as what type of art they can create. And we've had some really incredible pieces come through. And then sometimes the inspiration is also artistic. So it's not an expectation at all, but sometimes they decide to collaborate and both will
Wow.
contribute to the
Oh,
piece.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
a piece of each of them
right.
within that one piece. And they're exhibited at your events. Are they sold as well?
They are. We auction, all of our inspirations and artists are volunteering their time and and talent. And so we auction the pieces off. It does go back towards the program, and then at the event, all of the participants are our VIP for the night. We always have an extra time for them to be able to spend with the artwork and with each other. And when we were having our large in-person galas in Chicago, that one had gotten up to 800 people, and it was sort of an all-day affair. Like, you're not doing anything that day. This is what you're doing. um,
Wow.
but we've had some really gorgeous virtual events since the pandemic, and they have been absolutely stunning. And then this year we're doing a hybrid model. So we are hosting private receptions for just the participants in the space where the art is. And so that's been really amazing and much more intimate and very meaningful.
And
So
will that be the November 14th one?
yes. So in Chicago, earlier that day at 1 o'clock, we will have that private experience for them to be able to be in the space with the art and with each other. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll have our online virtual, celebration for everyone. And we always involve dancing because that's how we started.
Oh, I love that. Perfect. So do the inspirations, do they get a copy of the piece of art, or is it just auctioned off to go back to the program?
It is auctioned to go back to the program. Sometimes they purchase the piece. We give them first view, so they have usually about 10 days to be able to view the art, and before we open it to the public in the online gallery. And so sometimes they do, and then we do have an option where they can get a print. Like, I have a metal print, which is absolutely stunning, of one of my pieces. And that way, for me, I really enjoy the idea that the art continues to
Yeah,
tell
I
the
mean,
story.
correct. I mean, I think about, Pam, who's coming on in a moment, it's like her daughter lives on in somebody with
Right.
someone else,
Yeah.
that is truly beautiful,
Right.
because
So,
it's, it's Pam, it's Sarah, and it's Kristen all there together.
right. And the people who do purchase the art, if it's not going to the inspiration or their family, they're usually moved by the piece and by the story. So that wherever it finds its home, that story is going to continue to be told. And I think that there's something really beautiful about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have chills thinking about it. You know,
Yeah.
um, so even though it's been 18 years since your diagnosis and recovery, why did you feel it's important for you and others to participate in Brushes with Cancer so many years after your diagnosis and remission?
Um, I am constantly surprised at sort of the onion that is, you know, healing and processing essentially a traumatic experience, really. And if it's someone who has lost someone or someone who is a previvor who may just have the gene and actually wasn't diagnosed, it doesn't matter what kind of experience you had. There are still so many layers to really understanding how that's changed you and how that's affected you. So even years after, like, my experience with my artist this year was just really, we focused on some of the advocating for yourself, as you mentioned, some of the inequities within the medical community, and just some
Mm,
different things that I hadn't really processed fully. And so I think it's
interesting.
really important, no matter what, to know that this experience can offer you an additional layer of healing, no matter where you're at in your process. And sometimes there are survivors who are artists, and they participate as an artist and are able to experience healing by creating for someone
I
else.
I wondered if there, I mean, because sadly this six-letter word affects so many people that
It's
I
true.
wondered,
Yeah.
and that six-letter word is just, you know, no matter, in the descriptions you gave, the previvor, survivor, all of it, no matter where, it is a tough word to hear.
Right. And we don't focus on any one type, so it's really a larger community of people, anyone who's heard that word for themselves or for a loved one, really.
And that reaches, sadly, millions,
Right. Yeah.
you know, millions. Um, do you ever, I didn't ask. I mean, I know Kristen lost her life, but are there younger children who are involved as inspirations who've been affected or touched?
Sometimes they have to participate with a parent,
Okay.
and the parent needs to be involved in every conversation. So we never would
To
connect,
protect them.
yeah,
Yeah.
with the artist involved. But one of the artists, actually, a couple of programs ago, I think, um, my very best friend of like 20 something years, her daughter participated as an artist and was paired with a young person who was the same age as her, and the,
Oh,
the art was incredible. I mean, so yeah, it's
wow.
yeah.
That's an experience. So, going back to that first event, the first night you walked into the Brushes with Cancer event, you said you knew your life had changed.
Yeah.
Tell us what it has meant to work for and be involved with this program all these years.
Oh, are you trying to make me cry? um,
No.
it really has changed my life. There've only been very few moments like that where you just kind of know, oh, I just I just made a major turn around a corner and things aren't going to be the same. And walking into that event, that was one of them where it just resonated with like everything in my being. And so being involved with Twist Out Cancer, I always say I'm a lifer because it's such a beautiful program. And even, you know, even being involved in the nitty-gritty details and everything, it's the team of people that are on the board and are, working with Twist, just beautiful, beautiful people who are really passionate about what we're doing and are always trying our best to uphold the mission in every way. And I I mean, I know that people say those things, but
Mhm.
I mean, it's really, really true. And so it's enhanced my life in every single way, even obviously to the point of, my partner is the artist that I was matched with. So it really has
I mean,
changed.
it really has changed your life. You're not
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
Well, Sophia says thank you for sharing your story, and I really can't thank you enough, August, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. We'll stay in touch, okay?
Okay, definitely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, what a story. Thank you so much to August for joining us. And next, I want to introduce you and bring out artist Sarah Zielinski, who is working with her inspiration, Pam Oliver, who lost her daughter, Kristen, to cancer. Please welcome to the locker room, Sarah Zielinski and Pam Oliver. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Thank you both for being here. Pam, if you turn, you're doing it on a
Okay.
phone. It
Yeah,
should.
my computer for some
Oh,
reason just kind of
it might
like
be locked. It might
it
be
might be
locked. That's
locked.
okay.
I
Yeah, don't worry about it. No worries. So, Pam, I'd love to start with you. Would you tell us about your beautiful daughter, Kristen? Now, she was
Kristen,
diagnosed with sarcoma of the heart in 2018.
correct. Kristen, I want to say, was celebrating and trying to be the best person and live her best life. She had graduated from college, had been accepted into an awesome training program, very competitive training program in telecommunications, one of the leaders, and was living in Charlotte at the time. And she was traveling and she was making her own money, and she was just being just a delight to everybody. She loved to travel. She loved to help. She was a helper. She was a supporter. She was a comforter from the very beginning. We used to all say that she had an old soul because she sensed when something was wrong, or if you were having some problems or challenges, and she tried to help as best she could. And if she couldn't personally do it, she would always come to me and say, "Mom, do you know someone who could?" And whatever the end of that sentence was, I would try to do it. We kind of worked as a team, and my whole family really is like that. Just a very rich in spirit, funny. She could have been a comedian because she was funny and wasn't even trying to be funny. And so she really was this person that could convince you of just about doing anything for her. We used to call it being Christianized, because she we're like, oh, my husband and I was like, well, you got Christianized sometime, right? I was like, yeah, we'd go to visit her, and that 4-day visit would turn into 7. So I always built an extra vacation time. This is pre-sickness, pre-illness. And my husband, I'd say, well, I'm going to stay for a couple extra days. And he said, oh, she Christianized you again, huh? To stay longer. And I'm like, yeah, she did. So she was just a beautiful young person, a very special young person. And when this disease hit her, it hit her hard. And prior to the diagnosis, she was having issues with her heart, but we didn't know it was her heart. She thought it was stress. She worked out every day, had been working out since she was a little girl, because she was a figure skater. She was a cheerleader. She ran track. So she wasn't one of those, oh, I'm 21 now and it's going to be harder to lose the weight. She was very, very active and watched her diet. And her friends would say, hey, listen to Kristen. She tried to help even some of my friends with training and going to the gym with them when she'd come home to visit. So she was very health conscious and she loved to party. I'm going to say that my baby loved to party, and it might be a
Nothing wrong with
party at
that.
home. It might be a party here at the house, or when we'd go see her and we'd go to jazz clubs. And she loved going up into the mountains. She was in Carolina, so she loved going to the Biltmore State and Asheville, and just natural beauty. And she loved the ocean. And we'd take trips when I'd go visit her and try to convince my husband. And he's like, you know what? No, you guys make it a girls' weekend. And so we would do that. And we'd invite my other daughter, my oldest daughter, who has a family, and it was kind of hard for her. So it was usually the two of us that would go in and hang out. So like I say, when this hit her, it hit her so hard. She had symptoms that just seemed so benign, just like, I've got an earache, Mom. And that earache turned into 3 months. And my oldest daughter says, I'm telling Mom, she told you to go to the doctor, but thinking it was just an earache she was having. And this did not happen all at one time. She'd have what she called anxiety attacks about 6 months before she had a cardiac event, which they called a heart attack. And so all these little things were really just symptoms that we had no idea, because she was so healthy. And when we
Right.
found out, it was about 6 months after this cardiac event, and we were in Texas with visiting my other daughter. We were like canoeing for my granddaughter's birthday, and it was like 100 degrees, and she was in the back, and we were laughing, and she's rolling. It's like, Mommy, you taking us to the banks? You can't do it like that. And then she gets home to Charlotte, and she says, I don't think I have a fever. And that's what set off this chain of events of investigating what was wrong. And I got to tell you that that fever that she got really saved her life, because a week later, the doctors was just so on top of it. A week later, she was in the hospital and they were doing tests because said something's not right. We see a mass, and the mass was above her heart. So it just happened so quickly. Her life just basically, it really felt like it changed within a week's time. But we all remember and celebrate her life now. Her legacy lives on. And that's really what I truly, truly loved about our conversations, my conversations with Sarah, is because she let me just talk about her. And she was curious. She wanted to know who is Kristen, kind of person is she? What kind of, her energy, her spirit, and what she was all about. And I loved sharing that. I'm so glad you asked that question, because it was, yes, about her journey, but also the person that she was, not just
That
to
she
me
was,
and her
yeah.
family, but to her friends as well.
Absolutely. Well, we're gonna talk more about that in a minute. I would love to ask Sarah. Sarah, how did you first get involved with Brushes with Cancer?
I learned about Brushes with Cancer through a very close friend from college, Dr. Yael Simons, who is an oncologist in Chicago and also an artist. So Yael told my mom and I both about the program, and thought we would be interested to apply. My mom is an artist, and had lymphoma when I was in high school. So my dad has had cancer. So we connected immediately as Yael thought we would, and both applied. My mom was in the Northeast program this year.
And was Pam your first inspiration?
Yes, absolutely. And although as you sort of said, both Pam and Kristen were my inspirations, and their relationship, I felt very connected to them as mother and daughter.
That's great. Pam, for you, who introduced you to the organization?
Oh my goodness. We kind of have a history. I work for a news organization, and I found out about twist style cancer maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I was so moved by what they were doing to help um, those that have been on that cancer journey, both as either as a survivor, a supporter, as a caregiver. I said, oh my goodness, this is a wonderful story. Cancer has hit my family at the very, very early age. My grandfather um, died of stomach cancer, and I was about 6 years old, and I didn't know anything about cancer. I just knew that he was in the hospital, and he was like larger than life. And then next thing I know, he was no longer with us. And then my godmother had never heard of breast cancer. I was early teen, and she passed away, and she was my mom's best friend. And so I was touched by this. I didn't see the suffering until I was older, and I saw people who
Hmm.
were going through it. But it was close to my heart because I lost loved ones. So when there was an opportunity to share stories, either talking about disparities or talking about new treatments and innovative treatments and immunotherapy, I was always on it. But the other side of that is, how do you support those that are going through it? And when I found out about it, I was like, oh, we need to tell this story. And so I started out telling this story. And Jenna was the first one that we had interviewed about it, and her journey, this young, beautiful woman. And then I just stayed in touch, and they stayed in touch with me. And actually, I want to say it was last year, I'm one of the leads for one of our stages affinity groups. And I wanted to have a candid conversation about cancer. And it was a women's event, but I invited men as well. And I invited them to come, and they brought some artwork, and they shared how and what they were doing, which was wonderful. It was another way for me to share as a resource. Here, they're out there. And guess what? There was this beautiful painting. I'm like, that was sold, because I think everything else had been sold, but this one piece. And I was like, I'm going to buy that. And guess what? I want to help. So this is a way for me to support the organization, not knowing that I would be part of it, the next year. So our history goes back. It goes back. And it was just really a way of sharing the story and how people in our communities could be helped in so many other ways outside of the medical way, but just in supporting their psyche and their spirit.
And were you approached, or did you approach
I
them for your?
was, I was. I think Jenna she just, and as well as one of the other individuals approached me that heard about my daughter and said, we'd love to have you submit an application, because I was telling her story. I started telling my daughter's story much, much later, because she really didn't want a lot of people to know what was going on. Her healing was already complete, and she knew, and we had faith and believed that. And so I didn't share with a lot of people, but then when she passed, I shared the story and continued sharing her story to help encourage others. And that was the message I was getting from a lot of people. They were reaching out, people I didn't even know, young people and older people, individuals as well. They were like, can I share with you how Kristen impacted my life? And I was blown away. There were people she went to high school with, college. I was hearing stories about how she had introduced like girlfriend to guy friend, and they ended up getting married, and how they were at a really bad time in their life, and she helped them. I'm like, I knew my daughter was great, but I am the mom here, so of course, I would be a little biased, but I was
in
able to
death,
share her story.
people have a difficult time to share stories, or to, they don't always know how to approach people who have been touched by cancer or by death. And I love that. I mean, I think it's a great message. Anybody watching, share those stories with the people who have lost someone, because look at what it did for you to hear that.
Oh my goodness. I cry to this day. I have her phone, and we use her phone. I use her phone, but I see messages. My oldest daughter, Tiffany, I'm not going to start crying now. Sarah's used to this. But
That's okay. That's totally okay.
she would text messages. I mean, like recently, as of like 3 weeks ago, about how much she missed her. And I see the messages from girlfriends who still send messages, even though she's
Wow.
not with us, or a memory. I got 2 or 3 memories, and they call me mine. They're like, Mom, I hope I don't upset you by sending you those. I'm like, no, thank you for sending, but memories that just pop up on phones. And so I think it's good. We have to talk and sometimes cry. And that's what I did. Matter of fact, when you and August were doing the interview, I stepped away. I wasn't on camera yet, but I stepped away because of things that she said that really moved me and reminded me of this. So it's just a very special opportunity. There are no perfect words, and I learned that when someone is struggling or suffering, there are no perfect words. And I recently told a friend of mine who was diagnosed many years ago. She's 5-year survivor, and then it came back. And I just said, anytime you want to talk, if you just want to text me, if you want like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, whatever you want to do, just call me, because I get it. I watch my daughter, and sometimes, of course, people are going to ask questions, and sometimes they kind of ask silly questions. But I'm here. I'm here for you. You just want to talk. You just, whatever it is, it
I love what
helps.
you just said, though. There are no perfect words. I have lost both of my parents. So like anytime somebody loses somebody, I reach out immediately. It's just, I know what it felt like to be touched by the people reaching out to me. And I just love that you said that. There are no perfect words, but use your words, because it really does help people. And I want to talk about your words, Sarah and Pam, that first meeting. Can you tell me both how you approached this together? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not going to cry. But it was funny, because the first thing I thought, when, of course, we were invited, and we knew this was going to be virtual, it's hard to, for some people anyway, it's hard to start a conversation with someone that you don't know. But I'm I'm the person that when I would go, we were traveling or we're out with the family and I walk into the grocery store by myself, you know what my family says? Don't talk to anybody. Come back to the car, Mom. Especially when we were on road trips. You're going in for one thing. Don't talk to anybody. They don't talk to anybody because they know me. I talk. I'm a talkative person. So I didn't think there would be any issue talking to Sarah. She's got such a warm personality. And it just started like that. Even though I'm thinking in my mind, this is like kind of personal to me. How am I going to share this personal story with someone, even though I'm a talkative person? But she made it so easy. And I think the first thing that we did, I said, Sarah, do you mind if I like step outside? And I'm sure she was thinking like, why does she want to step outside? What is that about? And I said, I want to go to a place that I just feel so comfortable in. It's my sanctuary and it's my garden. And one question led to another, and that just kind of opened up our world, my world to Sarah. And I think she was in her studio at home, right? And I asked her to show me some of her pieces, and we just really connected. And I think it's because of the warm spirit. She really just embodies this person who is just a listener. I'm surprised she's not a therapist, but she is. She kind of is in a way. She kind of is in a way.
Definitely. Sarah, what do you remember about that?
It's so funny. I almost could echo back so much of what Pam just said. I was going to say Pam made it so easy because you really did. You were so open and so welcoming from the very beginning. And just sort of thinking about this question, we really didn't set out with any structure. I didn't have a list of questions. We didn't have so much of a plan. We knew the general plan, but we just moved very freely, sort of getting to know each other, and my getting to know Kristen, and Pam is always so generous. And as I was sort of smiling while you were just talking, Pam, you're so incredibly giving and so generous to everyone, and I hear that in stories that you tell me, that you tell, sort of very casually, because it's just who you are, to offer support to neighbors and friends who need it. And I felt that with you from the beginning. So it was just, we were very fortunate. It was super natural.
I love hearing that.
Very natural.
How often did you meet before the piece was finished?
I lost track.
It's hard to say because we didn't plan it out. It wasn't like we'll check in on, every month so we just sort of were in touch. And when we were both able to, which was with frequency, we got on Zoom or FaceTime, and usually more often than not, Pam was outside in her garden sanctuary, which really set the tone. It was so special to get to be there, or even when you were inside, I felt like there's something removed when we're meeting virtually, but also there's in some ways an added intimacy, right? Because you're in someone's home. So
you were in her sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. My swing on the front porch. A good friend of my oldest daughter had picked up some flowers at Christian services at the cemetery, and I had no idea what she was doing with them because they're just kind of spread out. And she took these flowers and she created like these beautiful pieces. She didn't create it; somebody else created for her, and it was like matted and glass. And I have it hanging outside. She did some keychains, and she did for my son and Tiffany. I should tell you, my oldest daughter's name is Tiffany, and my son's name is Kendall. I have to tell them if you share them. They're just beautiful, beautiful kids. I'm so blessed. But anyway, I'd say, hey, Sarah, you want to see this? And it's hanging outside in the front. And she'd say, yeah, I want to see it. She's like, oh, that is so nice. I really like that. And I said, hey, and let me show you this project that I'm going to start on, which Sarah still haven't started on yet. But we're still going to stay connected.
Yes,
And sometimes I just go
absolutely.
out and I have this swing in my backyard, and I grab a glass of wine, and I'm sitting in the swing, and I should have told Sarah, Sarah, you want a glass of wine? You have wine while I'm swinging you on the other. So it was just it was really relaxing, and it was always on a sometimes it wasn't the most beautiful day, and sometimes we'd sit inside and I'd show a little area that I had Kristen's picture and some other little things and that I picked up that just kind of I think helped Sarah know a little bit more like how sensitive Kristen was because I had these little angels and things that people had given to her in the hospital and those little wood knocks that are sitting around. I wanted to share because it helped me just kind of share that part of Kristen that not a lot of people have even been in my house to see because of the pandemic. But
Right.
it was a
Mhm.
special, very special times that we
Well,
had.
Sarah, that's what I'd love to know. What can you share some of the things that inspired you about Kristen and what you wanted to convey with your piece of art?
Absolutely. I was it continued to be so inspired by Kristen's strength and the strength and beauty of her relationship with her mother. Um, and Kristen's love of travel that Pam mentioned, and nature and animals. And Pam shared with me stories about different times that she and Kristen had been in nature together, um, which all are beautiful memories. Some more difficult or painful than others, um, and elephants in particular came up a lot. And that's in the first meeting we spoke about a little bit about art therapy and some of Pam and Kristen's experiences in the hospital with art, um, which connects to the elephants. And elephants are always very meaningful to me because they have memory and they mourn. Um, and so the piece has 5 elephants in it, who are meant to represent Pam and Kristen and Kelvin and Tiffany and Kendall. Um, and I told Pam and Kelvin, I didn't, it's up to them every day who's who. I wanted it to be flexible. Um, and as I mentioned before, the ways that Kristen and Pam reach out to others, sort of the birds in the piece are having conversations in my mind, and also sort of speaking to this ongoing conversation between Pam and Kristen, that is never ending. And yes, and I think I'm not sure, Alan, if you've seen the piece, but there's
Oh,
lots of
I have, and
okay.
I have, and I'm going to show it right now. And I would love Pam to tell me, what it was like when you got to see this for the first time.
Oh my goodness. My husband was, we were in the room together when Sarah, we started talking and he was going to leave. He's like, well, Sarah, I'll talk to you later. I'm like, no, why don't you come? Cause he always is like our time together. And so I said, I want you to see it. And when he looked at, and I'm sitting in my chair and he's like leaning over me and I just started crying. I just started crying and my husband was speechless. He's like, wow, wow, that's beautiful. And look at the colors. How did you know? Because some of those colors, they're some of my favorite colors, and they're colors that are in our living room. And that's probably, that's not even a place where we spend a whole lot of time in the living room. But he's like, I can't believe this. Did you know this? And he looked at a pillow. He said, the colors are in the pillow too. And wait, the walls, did Pam show you this? Did Pam show you that? And I'm like, no, Calvin, she didn't even see. You mean she didn't see it? And look at this other painting that we have, the one that I told you that I bought. I mean, it's unbelievable. He said, wow, I got the perfect place for that picture. I have the perfect place. You know what? We could put it right here and there. I'm like, but Calvin, it's gotta be, there's an auction, right? You know that, don't you? It's just not like, oh, Sarah created it. Yes, she did, just for us, but there's a process. There's a process. So He just to show you that that's how much he just loved that piece, and he could not believe. He's like the elephant. So when Kristen was in the hospital, she spent so much time in the hospital, and even at home, she loved the animal shows. I wish she could have bought stock in the Animal Planet, because she loved watching, and she would always tell me if I was home and she was in Charlotte, and these are doing like good times, because she wasn't always sick. She started getting extremely, just really, really sick when she eventually moved to Texas to go to MD Anderson. And she would tell me about the elephants, and Mom, did you know? And I said, that's one of my favorite animals, Kristen, because just they're mourning, and they're so much like humans, and they're parenting, and she just loved elephants. She loved animals. And so for the elephants to be part, and they're connected, and the birds, because that's the other thing we do. We bird watch, and we're in the backyard, and Kristen loved that. So it was like these things, these elements were all part of her and what she really loved, and what she got closer to. And during her illness, she got closer to that. She never wanted to watch anything that was just really serious or intense on TV. So you never catch her watching the news, because there was always, being in the hospital, so much sadness there, and so depressing, that she wanted to see life as life, like the animals in the ocean, and whales and dolphins.
This painting is life. This painting is life. You can
Yes.
see it. You can see it. What have you thought, Pam, what Kristen would have thought of the painting?
Oh, she had a thing with her girlfriends, and she'd always say, "Friend, you know what? Friend, isn't that awesome? Friend, how does she know?" And I could just hear her saying that. Friend, how does she even know? That's me, Ma. That's me. I could just see that. I could see her saying that. Just she animals loved her too. So, just the birds and the skyscape, and it was just very soft, like Kristen.
Sarah, what was the reveal like for you as an artist?
I felt a little bit nervous. I felt a little nervous and really excited. And I had met Kelvin briefly, through FaceTime before, but the fact that Kelvin was with us for that call was so special. It was because, of course, the whole family is connected. The whole family is a part of it. Pam said earlier, working as a team, it's so clear to me that you are. And Pam and I really didn't talk at all about, we spoke about colors, but we didn't talk at all about what kind of medium I was going to use, how big, what the imagery, we didn't talk about it at all. So I did, as soon, we got on the phone, and I felt like this wave of suspense, but it was really special.
And where does your love? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I didn't tell Sarah this, but I used to help the kids, like all parents do, with homework assignments. And one of the favorites that they'd always come to me about, along with papers, were what's it called? Dioramas? Dioramas. And that's what it reminded me of, because Kristen loved creating those dioramas, and getting the animals and the creatures. And when I saw it, I was like, why does this remind me so much of something that she would really want to do herself, is to create this beautiful image that's a reflection of the things that she loved, nature and animals. So I didn't even tell you that, but it was.
No, that makes me so happy to hear. And I think, there's something with the materials, and there's something childlike about them. It is exactly like a diorama. They're toys, really. But I've loved playing with toys and making things for so long.
It almost looks like the colors of the painting are in your top that you're wearing today. Pam, my last question for you. how has this experience helped you through the grieving process?
Oh, it just helped me tremendously. And I think I've always looked at myself as someone who really, like, I want to be the ear, to help, and the comforter. And this, going through this experience with my daughter, I think has made me a better person, just in terms of compassion, um, and listening, and um, wanting to help as best I could in whichever way I could. In one of the organizations that I'm now a part of in Kristen's memory, and she is actually on their board posthumously, is an organization that helps families and individuals who are going through a cancer journey and they are suffering or they're experiencing food insecurity. So we provide food for them, and we have grocery pop-ups. And I said, this is the kind of thing that Kristen would want to do. And when her anniversary of her services was July 24th, and the founder of the organization, who's a cancer survivor, she said, Pam, why don't you set up a table? And I said, okay, I'll do that. And she said, share the story. And it was all outdoors. And I did that. I set up a table, and I had Kristen's photographs, and I had little miniature plants, sunflowers and forget-me-not. Sunflowers, I don't know if you can tell, it's also one of her favorite flowers. And I gave them. But what I found myself doing, people would say, well, can you share their story? And these are like people who are going through treatment, and those that were in remission, and sharing their stories. I found myself, they were like, thank you so much for sharing this. Can I donate money? And I'm like, no, no way. No, we want to help you. But they were so moved and encouraged by her story, just for me sharing with them that journey. And so that's what this has allowed me to do, is to try to help others. Because Kristen saw that, like, young people who go through this, a lot of friends, they don't get it. They don't understand. I've even heard stories where they lost friends. They lost friends because it was a reminder of something like this could happen to me. And it's a terrible thing to say, but it's true. And they back off, they move off. I won't say lost as in I never want to see you again, but they don't call as often. They just don't, because, when they start losing hair, and this beautiful person is still beautiful to me. I don't care if you got hair or you don't have hair. I don't care if your skin is puffy because of those steroids or not. You're still beautiful. And this is something that people need to know and to understand, that this is a time they need you. You need to, you have to say, like, hey, what can I bring you? What's your favorite? I know this is your favorite. Can I bring this to you? Or and friends would do that. They would surprise her. Friends from Chicago jumped in a car and drove to Charlotte, and they had a pajama party. They all dressed up in costumes, and she was only expecting one, maybe two, and like five of them, were there. And one of her good friends in Charlotte was like, Miss Pam, I don't know if that's a good idea, because I don't think Kristen can handle. I don't really think, but it was good for her. But something like that, it's good. It's good for the soul. So that's what this has really helped me, I think, become the kind of person that, people suffer in different ways. If you're a caregiver or a mom, and you need us. We need each other.
Well, I think you said it perfectly. This has been good for your soul.
It has. And before you sign off, can I show you something?
Yes,
I'm going to lean
please.
down here. This, I told Sarah I had some for it, and I was going to surprise her with it, but I just think it's just so nice. I want to show it to her now. It's a big sunflower pillow with love on it, so I'm going to mail it off to you.
Oh, that is so sweet.
I love it.
So it'll be a
I love it too.
Pam, Sarah, thank you so much for spending this time and sharing your story and sharing Kristen with all of us.
Thank you, Alan. This is wonderful.
You're so welcome. Stay well,
thank
everybody.
You so much.
Stay healthy.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye-bye.
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 Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you to August Spree, Pam Oliver, and Sarah Zielinski for sharing your story and joining us tonight. Please visit twistoutcancer.org. And if you feel so inclined, it's really easy to make a donation You can text the word twist to 243725. All the donations help fund the programs that Twist Out Cancer offers. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow.